Great minds always discuss ideas. Yes, here we have cluster of intellectual minds to initiate the everlasting discourse. From the bottom of my heart, I extend my warm welcome to the chief guests, chairpersons, paper presenters, and all the participants to our international conference on the topic Borders, Bodies, and Belongings, the Global South in Literature and Theory. Next, welcome where the smile never fades and the joy is contagious. With immense pleasure, I welcome the veteran of the department, the woman behind all the hard work, our respectable head of the department, Dr. J. Jayalakshmi, to welcome the virtual gathering.
Honored Principal, Dr. M. John Sirani, esteemed Chief Guest, Dr. S.A.Thameemul Ansari, respected chairpersons from other colleges, Dr. Vasigi Ma'am, Dr. Sandra Karmal Ma'am, Dr. Kavita Ma'am, Dr. Kausalya Ma'am, Dr. Venkat Subramanian Sir, and chairpersons from our college, and beloved faculty members of our college and various other colleges, dear students, scholars, participants, a pleasant morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the Almighty for having graced us with such a wonderful program. It's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to this international conference on borders, bodies, and belongings, Global South in Literature and Theory, hosted by Govindammal Aditanar College for Women, Tiruchendur. Today, we have gathered here to explore the ways in which literature, culture, and theory from Global South to speak to questions of identity, displacement, marginality, and belonging, issues that transcend geography and touch the shared human experience. We are deeply honored to have among us the respected principal, Dr. M. John Sirani Ma'am, whose perennial guidance, support, indomitable spirit, and magnificent erudition have motivated us for such a glorious function. Her vision for fostering academic excellence continues to inspire us. On behalf of our department, I extend a warm welcome to you, ma'am. Then, a special welcome goes to our distinguished chief guest, Dr. S.A.Thameemul Ansari Sir, whose contributions and scholarship to literature have been a beacon for students, researchers, and thinkers worldwide. He is an accomplished academician, multilingual educator with over 28 years of university-level teaching experience across India, Libya, and South Africa. He has an extensive background in ESL and EFL, second language acquisition, discourse studies, and academic and technical writing. Dr. Ansari has authored 5 academic books, contributed 40 scholarly articles, delivered 58 keynote lectures, supervised 12 PhD scholars, and evaluated 20 international doctoral theses. He has also served in corporate training, curriculum design, and policy drafting. He has held several administrative positions such as research coordinator and chairman of curriculum committee in Jason University. He currently serves as professor and head Department of English and Literary Studies at Brainwa University, Kolkata, West Bengal. We feel honored and proud to have such an erudite scholar as our keynote speaker. In fact, we have to thank the Almighty for having given us such a wonderful guest speaker. On behalf of our college and on behalf of our department, I extend a red carpet welcome to you, sir. Then I'd like to welcome all the faculty members of our department and the faculty members of various colleges. Then I'd like to welcome the scholars, students, and participants. On behalf of our college, I once again extend a warm and wholehearted welcome to each one of you. May this conference be a space of productive dialogue, fresh insights, and enduring collaborations. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your evergreen welcome. Then, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Here, we have our path maker, trendsetter, the real lighthouse for all wandering boats, and leader, our respected principal, Dr. M. John Sirani, to give all the important presidential address.
Good morning, everyone. Respected Chief Guest, Dr. S.A.Thameemul Ansari, Professor and Head, Department of English, Brainwa University, Kolkata, West Bengal. respected head of the department, honored faculty members of various colleges, beloved faculty members of our college, research scholars, and my dear participants. I take an immense pleasure and pride in seeing that members of staff, scholars, and students of different places have gathered here together for this one-day international conference on borders, bodies, and belongings, the global South in literature and theory. I want to say a few words about our college. Govindammal Aditanar College for Women is situated in Tiruchendur, southern part of Tamil Nadu, India. It was established in 1987 by Padma Shri Dr. B. Sivandi Adityan with a magnificent mission of educating and empowering women, especially those from rural and underrepresented black backgrounds. The college has grown into a center of academic excellence and social progress with 11 UG programs and six PG programs and one research department. Committed to reach the unreached, the college not only impacts a dynamic and inclusive learning atmosphere, but also instill cultural awareness, ethical responsibility, and global viewpoints in the students. This conference aspires to create a rational space for the scholars and students to engage with critical and creative ideas emerging from post-colonial and decolonial context. Let this conference not only deepen our understanding of literature and theory, but also remind us of our collective responsibility to dismantle structure of exclusion and to image new forms of belonging. On behalf of the organizing committee, I extend my warmest wishes for a fruitful exchange of ideas. May this conference inspire not only academic collaboration, but also incorporate a unity among us forever. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inspiring words. It's my great pleasure and privilege to invite the torch bearer of intelligence, epitome of wisdom, the powerhouse of discourse, an example of humbleness, master of emotional quotient and intelligent quotient. He is a scholar who can handle both literature and linguistics with same energy and essence. I call upon the real social scientist, Dr. S.A.Thameemul Ansari, to give a keynote address.
Good morning to everyone. Please confirm if my voice is clear. I'd like to share my screen. Is my voice clear to you?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How
Audible.
about this? How about the screen I'm sharing? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir,
Can you
it is
see the
visible,
changing
sir.
of the screen? Yeah, is that okay? Good to go now?
Yes, sir.
I'm changing the screen slides. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So now, as you understand, well, it being an online session, sometimes I'm not sure whether the other people on the other side be able to follow me or not. And in case if something goes wrong with me, kindly text me or send me a message so that I'll be able to adjust it if I were to do something from my side. So it's a note. It's a note of caution before I start the session. Well, warm greetings to everyone, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It's an absolute pleasure to get back to your institution. Quite often, I long to get myself associated with you. Thank you for that. Greetings to all of you. And I know that I'm not going to start this session with a very formal note. I know I'm not a well-organized person because I'll be disappointing you if you expect me to be too formal. Um, my first thanks that goes to the principal of the college, as you rightly pointed out, that she's been taking lots of efforts to um, keep the flag of that college, flying high. Salutes to her. Also, thanks to the organizing committee, all members who actually worked hard for this particular conference. Thank you to you. And the scholars actually watching this program, students over there, and friends from different parts of the globe watching this online. Thank you to everyone. Welcome to all of you. Uh, with this brief note, uh, I like to reflect on, first of all, the theme of this particular conference. Uh, I have a special appreciation to the organizing committee members for having identified a theme which is extremely important, which is very critical, conceptually and thematically relevant. This theme is uh, borders, bodies, and belonging, global Southern literature and theory. That's why, at the outset, before I get into the details of this presentation, I like to thank all of you for this particular this contribution. At least the idea that we got to work on global Southern literature, we got to reflect on borders, bodies, and belonging, how these three different dimensions getting reflected in global South literature, application of theory, how far theory going to help us in understanding, promoting understanding, and all these things are really great, for which I think I should thank the organizing committee members. Now, let me actually focus on the theme of this particular conference, and then I'll talk about the structure of a presentation. I'm very much conscious of one thing. I know that the audience over there, they come from different backgrounds. I know there are lots of teachers in university level and people who are teaching in different colleges. Also, I know that there are lots of postgraduate students and undergraduate students too. So I need to cater to the needs and demands of this cultural, multilingual expectations. Also, people from different background having different understanding of the theories, different orientations of literature. They're all actually listening to us. So I want this presentation to be general, but at the same time, in an attempt to be too general, I don't want to liquidate the seriousness of this. I don't want to miss the point here, but I want this to be general in the sense that so that all our concerns and all our demands can be accommodated in this particular presentation. So forgive me if some professors actually got lots of understanding of this area. Then if I'm not going, to that level of expectation, this is the reason why I don't want to go to that level. I just want to start with something very fundamental and elementary. I'll try to structure this presentation. I try to build up this argument as we run through these slides. So now that's the reason why I want this presentation to be general, but at the same time not too general. I want it to be focused, particularly in terms of interpreting the issues in global South literature, kinds of problems and challenges discussed in global South literature, and then the theoretical orientation in understanding global South literature. Also, I'll be challenging the application of theory. That is also an important dimension in my presentation. I like to make one important point. I do not know how many of you would agree with me that today literature has been hijacked. It has been hijacked by theories. So what we do in literature classes, we don't teach literature at all. We don't help our students enjoy literature. Students actually who join our courses with lots of expectations and fun and all, now they are being bombarded with lots of theories. I want you to understand why these theories actually came into picture. So that's an important argument in my presentation. So I like to say that insertion of theory, I like to call theory as a kind of prosthesis. Prosthesis is an artificial implant. It's something that has been inserted so that we would be able to stand on that supporting leg. So it's a prosthesis that has been inserted to literature study. The reason is that when there was a question of the relevance and legitimacy of literature department, the literature department is not at all contributing to social concerns and cause. At that time, there was a fear that the funds supposed to have been allotted to the department would have been withheld. So at that point of time, the scholars actually come forward and say, come on, don't do that. And we are also equally responsible. And now what we did at the time, we inserted this prosthesis, which is actually theory. And that's how we started getting into theoretical orientation. Now we completely forgot literature. Now we talk about only theories. So that's, that's an issue that we need to understand. So this is to tell you that literature has been hijacked. I'll get back to this discussion a little later. Now, let's look at the three important concepts: borders, bodies, and belonging. Borders, bodies, and belonging, these three are three different dimensions of understanding Global South literature. You know, all these three, borders, bodies, and belonging, appear to be different, appear to be scattered, but all these things actually connected in one way or other. So what I mean by border is not actually geographical border. Border, by which I mean, it is a kind of division that has been caused by post-colonial experience of subjugation. By the way, I want you to understand what we mean by Global South. Global South, please understand, Global South is not a territory. Global South is not something that you could find in a map. It's not a territory. Global South is a category. It's a category wherein you find countries located in Southern Hemisphere, Asia, Africa, Latin America, Caribbean islands, and Middle East. These countries, they have common experience, shared experience of post-colonial subjugation, post-colonial conditions. So all these nations and countries and colonies having that experience of subjugation, that category is Global South. So Global South should not be looked at from the point of view of geography. It's not geographical division. It is actually a categorization. This categorization is because of the post-colonial division, the experience. So how people come together in Global South? Nations actually come together in Global South on one important condition. The condition is that you must have experienced this post-colonial division. So all of us subjugated, all of us, discriminated against, all of us will come together and form a nation. See, there is a concept called fourth world literature. Fourth world is actually a world which is beyond the borders, which is a world that we all have constructed. In that world, we find people of different areas, different countries and continents. We all come together on one particular condition. That was that we all have got shared experience of suffering and subjugation. So that fourth world is Global South. So Global South is not something beyond geography. It is something that has been created based on the experience of post-colonial realities. Then, bodies are the effect of this post-colonial division on our bodies. The effect of borders on our bodies, and I'll be quoting, if possible, biopolitics, Michel Foucault's argument on that, how our bodies have been exploited because of that. Necropolitics talks about, who shall be permitted to live, who shall be allowed to die, kind of protection of death, how the machinery is actually manufacturing death by creating conditions horrible, unpredictable. So the effect of post-colonial division on our body, that is called border. Then the effect of borders and bodies on belonging. Now, what is this sense of belonging? Sense of identity, sense of association, sense of ownership, sense of community. So borders are, as a result of post-colonial divisions, the effect of the border on bodies, the effect of borders on belonging too. So belonging is in the level of consciousness, bodies, that is in the level of physical suffering. Also, it is also connected to the identity construction, and borders are division. So if you look at this theme, these three ideas, borders, belonging, and bodies, these are three different dimensions. One is experience bringing people together, that is border. effect of that experience on our body, which is suffering in physical level, again leading to identity construction. The third level, which is it is the level of our mind and consciousness, the effect of that affecting our sense of belongingness, sense of nationhood, sense of displacement. So all these three are well connected. So now, I'm sorry, I've taken a lot of time to explain to you the key ideas. Now let's get into the flow of presentation. What is that I'm going to do in this presentation? I'll start with the background information, the Global South. I'll try to define Global South. Then I'll argue that Global South as a narrative, how Global South is actually gaining agency today, how it is actually coming out with powerful narrative to challenge the kind of construction that has been built around. And then two major forces sweeping across Global South, transition and transmission, how Global South actually transforms itself and how Global South engages with the rest of the world in terms of transmitting its indigenous knowledge. Then important writers and themes, and I'll be choosing writers based on my own convenience and interest. And then I'll start with, I'll ask some questions in challenges, and then questions we find in Global South literature. I'll be raising these questions towards the end, the strategies and conclusion, how Global South actually devising strategies to encounter that kind of imposition, and then how can we conclude this. So this is going to be flow of presentation. Let me start with the background information. I think we need to go back to 20th century. If you look at 20th century, if I were to summarize our present condition today, particularly understanding Global South, the start point is we need to understand what happened in 20th century. I would say 20th century is remarkably creative, but dangerously destructive. Why do I say that? Because in 20th century, all major inventions and discoveries took place. If you look at history, you understand man traveled from bicycle to cyberspace, but without bypassing nuclear bomb explosion. Imagine the inventions and discoveries between bicycle, invention of cycle, wheel, and cyberspace. All these major things happened during 20th century. So it was a kind of manufacturing bonanza. All things happened, but it seriously threatened our environment. We caused a huge challenge. Are you here? Is there any problem?
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Sir, can you show the screen to the full screen?
My God, what happened to you? Is it okay?
The slide must
me
be shown on the full screen, sir, so that it will be more visible, more clear.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 minute. All right. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. Full screen. I don't know. I'm sorry. I think I get stuck up somewhere here. Side slope. Yeah. Is that okay?
Okay,
that's
sir.
Fine.
Okay, sir. Now it's okay.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. All right. Great. Yeah, I was talking about 20th century. So I said, remarkably creative but dangerously destructive. All major inventions and discoveries happened in all major things, imagine all things of time. But it seriously threatened our environment. We are facing lots of ecological crises today, ecological imbalances created. So all these things, if you look at, this is the summary of 20th century. So major inventions, major discoveries, and all, it's a manufacturing bonanza, but at the same time, we threaten seriously our environment. But with these problems, when you look towards 21st century, in 21st century, we find four major challenges. The first challenge is protecting biodiversity. We are actually facing this condition, the condition of, how the earth is changing. This is called, kind of the damage that we've done to the planet. There is a discussion on page to planet. We need to write for the planet. We need to do something to protect this planet. So the first one is protecting biodiversity. Assume, we all think that man at the center. We are nowhere at the center. I think, all life forms matter. So the biggest challenge in 21st century is that protecting biodiversity, environmental crisis. The second one is we need to establish equitable economy based on fairness and justice. If you understand today, countries have been exploited because of this economic inequality. There was a systemic failure resulting in economic inequality, and because of that exploitation happening over there. So protecting biodiversity is one challenge. The second one, establishing global equitable economy based on justice and fairness. If you look at the way how countries have been exploited, how the colonial powers, neo-colonial powers, how they are exploiting our conditions. They're exploiting conditions through our pitiable situation, sometimes through economy, because trade that really matters. Economy comes into play. In foreign policy, that plays an important role. So we need to look at this aspect too. The third major challenge is forces of discrimination. We need to fight against all sorts of ideologies which discriminate one person from other, one community from other. All humans, should be treated equally. That kind of, ideological peddling, ideologies that have been promoted, which are resulting in discrimination, giving dehumanizing treatment to others. So this is a major problem. We need to fight against that force. And again, forces of delimitation, such as hunger, poverty, unemployment. So to put it in proper perspective, 21st century, the major challenges are five. Protecting biodiversity, then establishment of global equitable economy based on justice and fairness, and fight against the forces of discrimination, and fight against the forces of delimitation. Now, wait a minute. Why did I talk about all these things? If you look at these five major challenges, four major challenges: biodiversity, economy, crisis related to that, discrimination, all sorts of ideologies, and then delimiting forces. All these challenges are directly linked to post-colonial experience. So the experience of post-colonial condition, the four things I said, the crisis related to diversity, protecting biodiversity, establishment of global equitable economy, and then forces of discrimination and forces of delimitation. These four challenges are connected, related, linked to post-colonial experience. And it is that experience going to define what is global south. That's why I'm connecting that to this global south definition. So the experience of post-colonial condition, I talked about the four challenges. That experience actually bring the nations together, and they form global south. That's why global south, I repeat here, not a geographical marker or indicator, but it is a categorization. This categorization is in the level of politics or in the level of economics, which means economically, politically, nations categorize. So it's a category. So now, what are the nations, what are the countries located in this particular global south? If you look at them, you will find countries, nations located in southern hemisphere, countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Caribbean islands, Middle East, and so on and so forth. Even beyond these, you have even countries and nations which are across all these categories, but they have experience of this post-colonial condition. So now what happened, the discussion is that, shall we limit global south within this category? The answer is no. These categories are required. We need to understand, in a concrete manner, the kind of experience these countries have been subjected to, but at the same time not limited in this geographical geographical category. Beyond which is also category. What is this category beyond this? That is the experience of subjugation the people experience, irrespective of their geographical dispersion. irrespective of their geographical identification, still all these people can be connected together in the level of the consciousness as far as understanding the post-colonial reality. So in that level of consciousness, even those people can also be grouped together in this global south. This is not to debate, this is not to open the floodgate, it is not to generalize it, but that's how the understanding goes. But there are three important conditions required to become members of this global south community. Three conditions. The three conditions: number one, all of these nations coming together under global south category should have the experience of the effects of colonization. The experience of the effect of colonization should have been felt in their economic marginalization. So the effect of colonization affecting economy, then resulting in economic marginalization, leading to poverty and hunger, malnutrition, so on and so forth. The third level, because of the effect of colonization, there is a total collapse of the system, systemic failure. So these are the three major conditions actually bringing the nations together, and the grouping, that association is called global south. Here, of the three, the most important condition is the experience of the effect of colonization, the result of which is on economy, the result of which is on our system, systemic underdevelopment. So global south, a powerful narrative. Why do I say that? Global South is not mere identity. Global South is an agency. It's a powerful narrative because it rejects the old binaries of West and East. You just imagine how these nations have been classified and categorized, the West and the East, and certain attributes given to West and certain attributes to the East. You all know through reading of Edward Said and other great scholars. Homi Bhabha talks about this division, the West and East. There are certain attributes given to it, kind of perception that has been manufactured, that if you actually come from one category, if you come from one particular geographical category, then you're supposed to have such and such quality. So these old binaries of West and East, global South rejects it. And then categories are the first world and third world binaries. First world nations, advanced nations, third world nations, developing nations, underdeveloped nations. It rejects it. So what do we do now? We say we all, these countries put together, come together. We all form a nation. We are a nation ourselves. Here we engage in conversation. Conversation not between us and them. It is not just between South and the West. It is also between the South and the South. The South and the South conversation is extremely important. That South and the South conversation is important in terms of consolidating our position, consolidating our values, bringing all people together under this particular umbrella. So we reject in Global South that rigid binaries because they used to put us in category. If you look at the ways how these nations have been categorized, for example, Middle East. If possible, I'll talk about some of the writers from Middle East. If you talk about Middle East, with the very term Middle East, how it has been coined. What is this Middle East? Who has given this term Middle East? And middle to whom? That's a question. So middle to Europe. So when you say Middle East, so the very categorization of Middle East, that particular categorization has been made in relation to the colonial power. So it is the colonial power determined that this nation, because it is in between these two powers, it becomes Middle East. So if you look all these dimensions, you will find the effect of the colonial rule, the effect of the colonial angle in all these things, including the ways in which these nations have been identified. So Global South as a powerful narrative, it rejects this binary, because that's why there is among the scholars in Middle East there is an argument that is there any other way that we can call ourselves rather than simply accepting the title that we are Middle East. So why can't we identify ourselves belonging to a different category rather than accepting this category? Middle to who is the question they are asking. So this is a later realization. So in that sense, I think Global South is a powerful narrative. It asserts its agency and identity. It is not actually, something that is receiving. It's not a recipient. People used to consider global south as recipient of knowledge, because the west came out with a narrative that these people snake charmers, these people are underprivileged, they have no idea of education, civilizational values, and all these things have to be taught to them. For example, the values of democracy and all, these people are not aware of it, so we go to teach them. So that was the position. That was a kind of privileging position they used to have. But now, in global south, we reject it. We are agency unto ourselves. We will not accept what has been imposed upon us. We assert our own identity. This is in today's context, you will think in terms of promoting our indigenous knowledge structure. We have our own understanding of the world of reality. We have our own way of looking at the world of civilization. So we will encourage our own perception. We will encourage our own narratives. So in that level, we are asserting our agency. The writers actually working on this field, they assert their agency in bringing out the values inherent to our own civilization. We question the rigid boundaries of the limitation imposed upon us by the Western power. So it is the post-colonial voice gaining agency in asserting its identity. I like to give some examples, from literature, how it is actually taking place. If possible, I will be connecting this at a later point of time. So here, one of the strategies I'll be advocating is that we need to revisit the way in which we teach literatures in the classroom. When we actually engage in discussions on foreign text, for example, when we bring a foreign text to our classroom in our own context, we should not give that foreign text any kind of privileging position, because the text actually coming from an alien context, a foreign context, it has got a code of its own. And our students who are sitting in our classes, they have their own micro-political social relationship existing amongst themselves, between them and teachers, between us and administrators. So you will find in any education setup, socio micro political relationship subsisting. So when we bring a foreign text to our students coming from a particular culture background, we should not give that foreign text any kind of privileging position so as to make this foreign text, or so as to let this foreign text influence the present existing code of our own culture. So what we have to do when we bring a foreign text, we need to come out with our own tone of resistance to question the foreign text, and then come out with our own reaction to the foreign text. The reaction to the foreign text is our own narrative. Rejecting the narrative that has been narrated to us, we have to come out with our own narrative. This is what is called, agency. We should gain agency in our classroom when we bring a foreign text. We need to actually promote secondary literature rather than simply being a recipient of whatever has been presented to us. In that way, I say it is an agency asserting its post-colonial identity. If time permits, I'll talk about this little later. We will look into the details of this particular methodology of teaching, pedagogy of teaching in detail little later. The two major forces sweeping across global south: transition and transmission. Transition is a change. It could be historical change, cultural change, political change. Historically, the colonized nations have become independent states today. Culturally, traditional societies have become global modernities thanks to the force of globalization. In political level, we have moved from dependency to self-rule. So historically, change happened. We have become independent. We got freedom. We were liberated from the clutches of the foreign rule. Culturally, we were once traditional societies. Now we are aspiring for great things in life. Our societies have changed because of the effect of the globalization. We have become global modernity. We are open to change. New value systems actually coming in. So we are actually changing ourselves in cultural level. In political level, dependency to self-rule, in a right of our own, right of rule, and we gained that power. We gained at least the political power. So these three levels of transition, you will find it in global south. This is one force. The second force is transmission. This transmission is culture transmission, for example, sharing indigenous knowledge structure. That's what I said exactly. When you bring in your foreign text, what we need to do, question the text that is actually coming to you. You question the text in such a way that you bring your own narrative to the text. Take, for example, if you look at the text written in a foreign context, the text has got its own culture code. Now, my question is that why should we accept the text as it is? Why should we give a privileging position to the text? Why can't we come out with a reaction to the text and then come out with a narrative which is an attempt to understand, which is an attempt to put the text in proper perspective? So every text has got a culture context, because a text and the context should not be actually separated. What I mean by context, is that context may be environmental context, which is immediate context. It could be social, cultural context. It could be linguistic context. It could be mental context, multimodal context. So the text that is actually coming to classroom has to be necessarily alienated from the context it produces. Let the text be presented to our own context. Let our culture interact with that particular text and produce its own knowledge structure. This is what is called indigenous knowledge structure. We need to promote that indigenous structure. We should not actually let the foreign text to influence. I like to give an example, from oral traditions. You must have heard of that. When we think of knowledge, a knowledge is, that it is a construction, but that has been imposed upon us. There is something that has been accepted, that has been established as knowledge. We need to actually come out with a strategy to question that established knowledge. I like to give an example which is actually from oral tradition. Actually, you must have heard of this example. Sometimes some of you must have heard of this. A university professor, for example, from a different culture, going to a village to teach the children over there who have never been to schools and colleges. They have no idea of this formal education. This university teacher, in an attempt to teach mathematics, for example, he teaches like this. For example, if we have, because most of them, I think, they rear sheep, so he gives an example. Imagine if you have 100 sheep, and from the 100, if 5 imagine run away, then how much will be remaining? That's how he's teaching. So 100 minus 5, how much will be remaining? And he was expecting people to say 100 minus 5 is 95. And now there's a student actually standing up, a girl stood up and said, if 100 sheep over there, if 5 let out, run away, and she says the answer is 0. Now, why 0? Because in our opinion, well, if there are 100 sheep, if the 5 run away, obviously the rest of them will also run away. So now she has got knowledge of the behavior, how these sheep would behave. But this person from university, he has got knowledge of number. So what we have to do in Global South, we have to integrate these through dimensions of knowledge. So what is knowledge today? Now, one culture would say what the other person say wrong. We do not know that we could be wrong. So he says that we are wrong because 100 minus 5 should be 95. But that is not the case. She knows how the sheep behave, whereas he knows only numbers. But the question is, whose this knowledge? So knowledge, it has got its own political backup. It has got its own contextual backup, in the words of Foucault. So it is a construction. So when we promote indigenous knowledge, we need to go in terms of integrating it. It's not that an established knowledge that we have to accept it. Is it possible to bring these two knowledge structures together? That's what we are doing, sharing our own indigenous knowledge structure, reaching out to the global society to help them understand how we think. This is in cultural level. In theoretical level, post-colonial theories and subaltern studies, these are the theories actually we use to understand our conditions, post-colonial conditions in Global South. But here, I like to suggest that we should not simply stop with post-colonial or subaltern studies. We got to go beyond the theory, post-theory, because post-theory will offer new perspective. What do we mean by post-theory? We need to go beyond Foucault, Derrida, because Michel Foucault, Lacan, and Derrida, this has become common sense today. When we were students 30 years ago, we used to glorify writers like I.A. Richards and Cleon Brooke and all. They were said to be revolutionaries, but today, no. And then later on, Michel Foucault, Lacan, Derrida, today, all these people have become common sense. We got to go beyond Foucault, Derrida. We have to actually bring in Alain Badiou, Bourdieu, and so many great writers who actually work on this particular condition, post-theory perspective. So you see, I get back to the discussion. The start the start of the session, I said, post-theory. Post-theory is that there is something beyond the theory. Of course, we all glorify theories because the theories offer us frameworks for understanding. The theories would protect us from totalizing narratives. Because if you don't have theories, then there should be one narrative. All of us should subscribe to the narrative. So theories are a challenge to totalizing narrative. You understand that, but actually, the theories, they got nothing to do with the literature. So when we say the theories actually offering us frameworks for understanding, the theories actually, we have brought in this theory as a prosthesis to support our department for the fear that otherwise it would be closed. Because there was the legitimacy crisis, we brought in this theory. We started looking at all these issues only from theoretical perspective. I'll tell you the reason how actually it came about. Actually, what theory does is ideology. If you apply Marxian understanding, you will understand this. This is ideology peddling. So now, if you want the power structure, they want society to be in proper order. They want to establish, proper order. So if you want to maintain proper order, you need to have people who are consenting to be governed. Otherwise, people will not obey, people will not be accepting your rule. So in order to get the consent from the people, so what we have to do, we have to influence people through ideology. So this ideology peddling is a technique that we have actually introduced. So we used to tell them, look, what we do in literature classes, we are actually promoting an ideology. Ideology would actually help because ideology interplates individuals into becoming subjects, Althusser's theory. So what happens, when ideology given to you, you will do things which you would not do otherwise. So it is the ideology that converts people into subjects. For example, if I'm an individual, then I'm free to draw my own conclusions. I'm free to go in my own way, that no one can restrict me, no one can question me. And then it will be very tough for the power structure to govern. So if the ideology given to me, the ideology that I belong to a nation, I belong to a culture, I have a religion and all a linguistic group. So these ideological peddling would convert people into becoming subjects, and then they can easily handle it. So this is how we convince the people who are about to close our department that we got to bring in. We will integrate. We'll bring the theories to literature classes. But here, when we actually focus more on theories, there are lots of arguments against them. Like we are creating false narratives, we are creating false consciousness, because theories will make you think think about something or make you behave in a particular way which you would not be otherwise. So what theory is doing? A theory is actually giving you a false consciousness, and theory is also promoting fake narratives. It is also resulting in identity politics. There are lots of issues with theories too. So that's why in post theory, what we are going to do, literature has its own way of dealing with the thing. Literature, a lot of stories, it has got its own way of dealing with the thing. Of course, we reach truth in different ways. For example, social sciences, they reach truth in one way. Natural sciences, they reach truth in another way. Philosophy will reach truth in another way. But literature will reach truth through love. So through love, through empathy, through sympathy. So that's why we need to encourage storytelling sessions in post theory. So what I'm trying to convince you of is this: we need to promote, lived experiences. Lived experiences actually matter. In this context, I like to refer to my friend Siddiq Crombie, a South African writer, whose work has to be looked at now, because right now in my university there are 3-4 scholars actually working on his work, actually apartheid, my story of an apartheid. So he himself has experienced the effect of that apartheid in South Africa. So that particular perspective, listen to the lived narratives. And linguistic level, lots of translations going on, lots of these translations of our narratives into global language. We do this in order to reach out to the world. TRC is actually Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was established in South Africa soon after apartheid came to an end. You must have heard of apartheid. When it came to an end, there was a commission established in South Africa. This commission actually looked into the cases of violations and all. There was lots of people expected to stand before the commission to bear witness, to give their testimonies. But people who were subjugated, who experienced that suffering and horror, many of them, they did not come forward to give the testimonies because of the fear. They lost their language. So very few people actually came forward. A few people came forward on behalf of larger number of people, and those people actually spoke on behalf of the others who could not speak. So that is one narrative. And also there were several people who experienced the subjugation. They couldn't open up. Imagine, I always say this: if there is a person, he cannot speak up, but he has a story to tell. Imagine there is a person who is a victim, and if the victim has a story to tell, but he couldn't tell the story because his language has failed him, because he couldn't understand how to narrate because of the fear of the consequences. So a person, if he has a story, if he refuses to tell the story, still, is it a story? The answer is that if he couldn't tell the story or refuses to tell the story, the person himself becomes a story. So that story to be narrated, that story to be encouraged. So not that everything narrated, narratives. There are things non-narrated. There are things under the carpet. There are things silenced. Even those are also narratives. We got to bring them out. Then linguistic transmission, that's what they're doing. They are actually looking at the silences. They're bringing out how the silences actually evoking impact and feeling. Then when the people are not there to tell the stories, you will find their tombs, because they've been killed and buried. The tombs are narrating the stories. Sometimes you will not find tombs, you'll find the bones. Bones are narrating the stories. You'll find memorials. Memorials are narrating the stories. So all these things are different forms of narrations. These are all fragmented narratives. So this fragmented narrative can be brought together under this category of linguistic transmission. And this, whatever has been presented before the Commission, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that is a very, very large material, and it has been published. It is very much available online. I would strongly recommend you to read this. I think you can reserve that for a post-retirement reading, because it runs into thousands and thousands of pages. And several writers actually used that Truth and Reconciliation Commission report as a raw material for their fiction and for their novels. So we need to encourage narratives here as a special. We need to advocate that narratives should be given a special status. It should become a genre. So that's about the transmission. Now, the message that is loud and clear is Global South no longer a passive recipient of knowledge, but active transmitter of knowledge and experience. And we are capable of shaping global intellectual culture currents. We are capable of changing the intellectual climate of the world through rereading of literature and revisiting the sites of ideology peddling. Because we all understand literature is a site of ideology. Every literature promotes a particular ideology. So what we have to do, when we actually engage in that literature teaching, when we engage with a particular book, we have to do it with a sense of political responsibility. What is this political responsibility of teaching literature? Do not let your foreign text to influence the culture code of the students who are sitting in the class. Students sitting in the class coming from different social cultural background, they have their own existing culture codes. That foreign text with that influence should not interfere with it, but we can interact always to see what emerges as a result of that interaction. This kind of hybridity, a cross-fertilization of ideas, cross-negotiation of ideas, we need to encourage. So this is called, a diatopical hermeneutics. Diatopical hermeneutics implies it's a new idea that everyone actually coming to a platform with a horizon of understanding. I can't see the world beyond the horizon which is limiting me. So when I listen to you, You have your own horizon of understanding. You can't see me beyond your horizon of understanding. So, in order to understand each other, both of us should be able to cross the horizon. Crossing the horizon possible only when two conditions satisfied. One is I should admit my ignorance of the other person's perspective. Also, I should appreciate that other person's perspective is unique. So, admittance of ignorance in me and acceptance of uniqueness in others, that would help me cross the border. That's what exactly Global South is actually encouraging us to do. This is what is called teaching literature with a sense of political responsibility. So Global South literature actually, it portrays people as agents of protection, not recipient of knowledge. They are capable of contributing to the culture currents. They are capable of influencing the decision-making process, influencing the whole world, the whole ecosystem. So we invite in Global South literature discussions and debates and discourses on how histories and identities and theories are not just inherited, but they are reshaped and they are passed over to the world. So we reject all classified interpretation. For us, the very act of teaching itself is an act of resistance. Refuse to be influenced by what is actually coming in. But I can interact, I can negotiate by asking tough questions. So I like to present here a few writers. I have no, I can't tell you why I have chosen these writers. There is no particular reason why I've chosen this writer, but I can tell you one thing. But these writers, I have read these writers, and these are the writers I teach actually. And I find these writers have got something in common. What is that? All these writers, if you look at the names, of course, I will share the slides to the organizers. I think they'll be able to share it with you, to the scholars who are interested to have a look at it in detail. But these writers, if you look at the map, for example, from Africa, from Chinua to Wole Soyinka and Gugi Otiogyo, if you look, and then from India, Arundhati Roy, Salman Rushdie, Jhumpa Lahiri, then Derek Walcott, Nepal, Jamaica Kincaid, and Latin America, Gabriel Gracio, Isabel Allende, Mario Burgers, Julio. Then from Middle East, Najib Mahfouz, Taib Salaf, Hanan al-Sheikh, Elif Shafak. If you look at these writers, you understand the themes they handle. Destruction of indigenous culture, then linked to neo-colonial politics. Neo-colonial politics is after colonial rule coming to an end. What kind of effect that colonial rule that has on us, that is actually the source of neo-colonial politics. Then decolonizing of our mind, how to do that. Then the effect of colonialism in our caste system and class system, Arundhati Roy. Then how can we revisit our own colonial history? Then talking about the borders like cultural, psychological, linguistic borders in Jhumpa Lahiri's. Then bringing African inheritances and European inheritances together, then issues of displacement and post-colonial identity, colonial oppression, then colonial intrusion and post-colonial oppression, post-colonial reality, then modernity and tradition, the tension that is existing between them, and then colonial encounters between Africa and Europe, and then narratives of deconstruction over there, the decolonizing mind and East-West tension identity. So in the list, I have a special interest. I would strongly recommend the scholars who are working on Global South literature or post-colonial studies to pay special attention to the last writer, Elif Shafak. I thought I should talk about this writer in general because as it is a keynote address, I thought I have to do justice to all. That's why I restrain myself, from getting into the details of Elif Shafak, because Elif Shafak's writing, I have closely observed. It's a very interesting one because she talks about cultural identity, the negotiated identity, fractured identity, across the boundaries of nationality, ethnicity, language, and religion. Also, she talks about a tension between tradition and modernities, East and West, and arguing that identity is a fluid category. Lots and lots of works written by Elif Shafak. The Island of Missing Trees, The 40 Rules of Love, Honor, The Bastard of Istanbul, 10 minutes and 38 seconds in the Strange World, then Architect of Apprentices. These are all, great works and phenomenal works of Elif Shafak. I had an opportunity of conducting an interview with Elif Safak, and it was a great experience. So I'm inviting all of you to pay special attention to Elif Safak, because she talks about border between East and West. Uh, the reason why I say that Elif Safak should be paid special attention to is because of her background. She's actually from Turkey, but born in France to Turkish parents. Parents got separated. After separation, father stayed in France. Elif Safak have to come to Turkey. She stayed in Turkey with her mother and grandma. Then Turkey's influences the kind of culture situation existed then, and then she chose to she became a writer, and then later she chose to stay in the UK, England. So if you look at Turkey, Turkey has got this unique identity. You can't call Turkey as something as a society or a country belonging to the Europe or Middle East. So where does it stay? It is somewhere in between the Europe and Middle East. So when I say somewhere in between, that itself is a message. That is the theme of all her writings. The theme of all her writing is that she was born in one place, lived in another place, settled down in another place, this fluidity, the tension. And her country, Turkey, located in one place, which is somewhere in between. This in between is extremely important. Why I say in between? Because that's how the cultures are located. So she often crosses, across borders. So the message in Elif Safak's writing is that crossing the border as form of life. You got to cross culture border, you have to cross linguistic border, you have to cross all sorts of borders existing, because all these borders are limiting. So crossing the border to have a perspective beyond the immediate, that is also one of the ways of understanding global South. The dominant themes are colonialism and aftermath. We discussed this point. Resistance to the foreign forces which are influencing us. Then establishment of cultural identities and encouraging hybridity, gender and social justice, migration and diaspora, representation of the voices and how voices getting represented in literature, and ecological justice. So these are the major dominating themes in global South literature. So the big challenges are the countries, nations located in global South, they face extremely difficult situation today. I'm sorry, I couldn't give examples because I'm running out of time. Economic inequality, it's the effect of colonial rule, effect of colonial hangover. It's an aftermath of colonial rule. So economic inequality, political stability, climate crisis, health education, and cultural marginalization, and add to the list digital divide. So if you look at these issues are actually connected to the four major challenges I said, starting with biodiversity, establishment of global equitable economy based on justice and fairness, and fight against all sorts of ideologies discriminating people, and then forces of delimitation. So all the four biggest challenges which I talked about in 20th century, beginning of 21st century challenges, all these challenges are reflected in this particular context. And Global South faces these four major challenges getting reflected in these levels. So what is the question before us? How can we reclaim our narrative? How can we reclaim our identities, assert our identity? How can we get the power, reclaim our power through literature? Three ways: decolonizing knowledge, amplifying subaltern voice, and then asserting the power of the marginalized. How can we do that? Decolonization of mind, decolonization of knowledge. In an attempt to decolonize, we end up in recolonizing ourselves. So we need to understand, how to decolonize without recolonizing. But recolonization is a kind of effect. It's a consequence of decolonization. But the way to decolonize the recolonization is understanding the effect of decolonization. We should not fall into recolonization. So decolonizing our knowledge structure, encouraging different multicultural knowledge representation, see that our knowledge community, our discourse community should be vibrant, and then amplifying subaltern voice. You can amplify subaltern voice by giving a chance to the suppressed voice to speak, because the voice that has been suppressed, longing for utterance, it should be given a chance. Now, this particular voice is gaining momentum, it is gaining agency and asserting the power of marginalized. So the strategy is this: revision, reinterpretation of what constitutes literatures of representation through theories and post-theories. We need to totally reinterpret what constitutes literatures of representation. There is a politics of representation. There is a politics of representation. There are things not represented, underrepresented, wrongly represented. Identify such issues to, address these issues, coming out with a counter narrative. What is required is counter narrative. That the girl who was never been to schools and colleges, standing up and telling, if 10 goats are there, 10 sheep are there, if 5 run away, all the rest of the sheep will go away, should also be something that has to be considered a part of our knowledge. It should not be negated just because of the person's background. So when we need to encourage different knowledge constructions and knowledge manifestation, all these things should be integrated. Literature, it has become a site of ideology battle. We should be aware when we actually negotiate with literature, any literature text for the matter, you got to see how this ideology is functioning. This is called ideology peddling. So we need to be very careful that that ideology that has been there in the literature, that is actually negotiated in the literature. When it comes to our own culture context, our culture should be able to deal with that appropriately. Then for which I encourage teaching literatures with a sense of political responsibility. There has to be an activism in the classroom. Literature teachers should be active in the sense of, understanding social concerns. Whatever happens outside should disturb us. Whatever happens outside should influence us. Actually, Zizek actually talks about this. We, in the name of peddlers of ideology, in the name of teaching literature, we think real politics is taking place within the four walls of the classroom. We are totally oblivious and ignorant of the politics that is taking place on the streets. The real politics taking place in the streets should also be a matter of discussion. We should not think that what we do in our literature classes alone politics. It is not so. We need to understand, we need to look at it beyond our literature classes to bring the politics of outside also to the center stage. So politics of interpretation, the role of text, we should never give any kind of privileging position to any text that is actually coming from a foreign text, a foreign context. Subject the foreign text to a critical inquiry, respond to it through an alternative narrative. What I mean by alternative narrative is come out with a secondary text and secondary literature so that you can deal with that particular force of ideology. So pedagogy of humanities should be seen as an arena of cultural explanation that questions the explanation of culture. You see the conflict here? When you bring in a foreign text, the foreign text stands as an example of a particular culture explanation. So in an attempt to interact with a particular text, our interaction should also be an attempt to question that explanation of culture. For example, the culture that has been promoted through a foreign text, it has to be put to question, put to scrutiny, come out with a narrative, challenge it, you question it, and then make a compromise and understand it properly. Don't give that any kind of privileging situation. Don't put it on a pedestal. Don't keep it on a high tower, and then you look up at it, and then with for all glorification. Don't do that. You negotiate it. So theories are offering us framework of understanding, but theories alone cannot capture the pain of exile, the pangs of refugee, and the resilience of the oppressed. So what is that we have to do? Theories are inadequate. Theories are inadequate. No amount of intellectual discussion would help you understand the kind of suffering that has been experienced. So what is required is we got to go beyond the theories, because the theories alone not capture. They won't capture the pain of. They cannot sufficiently capture the pain of exile and pangs of refugees, resilience. We have to go beyond the theory. Then listen to the lived narratives. That's why I say listen to the narratives of the people who actually experienced this. So there are lots of things reported. The reported narratives are different from the narratives actually from the people who experienced it. One such person is Mr. Siddiq Rabi. He'll be actually talking to you after my presentation, maybe in the afternoon, and you listen to the narrative. You understand how he looks at the global south from his own personal perspective, because as I told you previously, he has become a victim of that particular discrimination. So what he is going to present, while talking about his own book, that is going to be a lived narrative. So we need to encourage, we need to listen to lived narratives. And then oral history, we need to appreciate, recognize the testimonials. For example, Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report. And we also should encourage oral histories, street art, songs of resistance. The final word is this: we are not here only to theorize, but we are here to humanize. Humanize in order to ensure that our work reflects the lived realities of those at the margin. So, those who are actually working on this field, those who are actually writing about this field, please understand, theories should not hijack you, it should not overtake you. Theories should be there, but what we have to do is we need to make these theories humanize. The humanization is look at it from empathy point of view, sympathy point of view, compassion point of view. You identify. So theories should humanize, and it should ensure that our work reflects the real lived realities of those people who experience this subjugation. Scholarship, our understanding, our intellectual rigor, it must not only to interpret the work, but also to transform it. Mere interpretation doesn't work. Transform it. What is that? How can we transform it? You bring a narrative to the classroom. Don't simply talk about the narrative. React to the narrative and come out with a counter narrative. You come out with a narrative which is actually transforming this narrative. So any work that comes in, any kind of presentation that has been made to us in terms of narrative, so we need to encourage our students, we need to encourage our participants to understand it from the point of view of sympathy, and then we need to interact, we need to interact, and we need to intervene with that particular work in the process of developing consciousness. So in an attempt to do that, when we intervene, when we interpret, what we do, we don't bring out what the text actually says, we also transform the text, and we give a text a new identity. That is the thing that we should do when we do our course in global literature, global south, or when we teach this course, global south. So sum up, I think I've taken a lot of time, and let me give you the summary. Those who have missed the points, whatever I shared, I'm going to put all these things in proper perspective. It will be for easy reference. I argued the global south is not a geographical entity. It is not a geographical demarcation. It's not simply a line that has been marked on the map, but it's a political, cultural categorization. Also, I said the conditions wherein the nations can become together, they must have experienced post-colonial experience of subjugation and economic marginalization and total systemic failure. These three conditions bringing nations together, and they form global south. Then, apart from that, also you should understand, beyond these two, people who have been subjugated, people who have got similar experience, wherever they all will also form one category, which is fourth world. Even that world is also connected to global south. And what do? We come up with argument, we come up with discourse, we come up with a narrative to question and challenge the rigid binaries. We question and challenge the narratives promoted by the West. Also, what we do, we start our own interaction between South and South, conversation, negotiation, in order to consolidate our position. So it is a post-colonial experience which is connecting people to people of global South. And it rejects all sorts of binaries, and it is a post-colonial voice gaining agency, and the two forces which are actually, running through global South literature: force of transition, which is in cultural level, it's in political level, it's in economic level, theoretical level, and transmission of knowledge structure. Active agent of knowledge protection, not mere recipient of knowledge. We are not in a position, we are not actually empty baskets. Then our mind is free and we are free to get all the information. It's not so. We are not empty. We got our own experiences. So our experiences will interact whenever a foreign text is brought in to our own culture context. So it reclaims its narrative through resistance and reconstruction. Resistance to text, reconstructing it, resist the influence that is actually coming, and then try to reconstruct it give a new shape to it. That's what we say. We decompose it. We decompose the text and then you recompose it. Decomposition and recomposition. This is called, we do it, when we do this decomposition and recomposition, we are decolonizing knowledge. We are coming out with a different kind of knowledge structure. Knowledge is not something which has been already built. Knowledge is something that is under construction. When you and I meet, what we do is construction of knowledge. Knowledge is not something out there that we should have access to that. We will construct our own knowledge structure thanks to culture process. Amplifying subaltern voice, give power to subaltern voice, assert the power of the marginalized, give chance to them, let them be brought to the center stage. And we need to teach literature with a sense of political responsibility, and we should not be imprisoned with theories. I think theories will blind us sometimes. Of course, although theories offer us frameworks understanding, I understand why we actually started relying on theories, because we wanted to protect our own department, our own interests. But this is high time that we got, because there was an argument against it. That argument is that literature is not utilitarian. So we were not utile. So that was the argument. So at that time, in order to cover it up, we say, no, we are equally utile. We have utilitarian angle too. So what we do in the classes, we are actually teaching ideology. When we teach ideology, then these individuals will become subjects, and it will be easy for you, the powers, to manage things. All people can humbly accept things, when they become subjects. So ideology interpolates individual into becoming subject. That's what we narrated in that way. But this is high time that we got to stand up and say that, yes, if you say we are useless, I would say we are absolutely, ruthlessly useless. We are inutile. Utilitarian is something that doesn't belong to us. You cannot put us in a category that is applied to others. We are a different category. We will encourage reading out of love. Essentially, literature for love. Essentially, literature for passion. Actually, students who are coming to us, joining our department, they came with a lot of hope. They came with a lot of interest. They thought that stories and all will entertain us. But what happens to us is we have done a great damage to that. And now they have become terribly afraid. They become very serious, and you tell everyone literature is not an ordinary one. This is a theory. So I think literature has been hijacked with theories. We need to recover literature. We got to restore the literature, encouraging lived narratives. There is a way of approaching truth through literature. We can approach through love, that we can approach truth. So not just the three methods, the social sciences approach, or natural sciences approach, or philosophical approach. We have a different kind of fourth approach, that is approach advocated by literature, that is through love. So Global South is an epistemic site of knowledge production. It's a site of knowledge construction. And Global South is emerging today very strong. It's emerging today as a strong force. It is already a strong force. It's a strong force of influence on the global stage. Let us understand this. Let us appreciate it. Let's see, all of us, we have to come together to give voice to this. We all have to come together to shout that we are a power unto ourselves. We will never be subjugated by anything that is actually coming from outside. Whatever comes from outside will be subjected to our own scrutiny. That's how we communicate. That's how we respond. With that, I think I can come to the end of this presentation. Nice talking to you. Great opportunity it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next,
Any
I would like
questions?
to call upon the epicenter of dedication, the roadmap of sincerity, our ever-loving Mrs. V. Subba ma'am, to propose a vote of thanks.
Good morning to everyone present. On behalf of the organizing team, it is my great privilege to deliver vote of thanks at the morning session of today's meeting on the Global South in Literature and Theory. First and foremost, I wish to thank God the Almighty for making this session a successful one. I would like to thank our respected principal, Dr. M. Jansirani ma'am, for her guidance and encouragement in making this session possible. Thank you, ma'am. Next, I would like to thank our beloved HOD ma'am, Dr. G. Jayalashmi, who is constant supporter of all our endeavor. Thank you, ma'am. A special word of gratitude goes to our distinguished chief guest, Dr. Thameemul Ansari, who illuminated many dimensions of post-colonial thought. Your insights have deepened our understanding on literary theoretical articulation of resistance, identity agency, from the global south. Your speech has really enriched our knowledge on the complexities and richness of post-colonial literature. Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring speech. I also extend my thanks to the faculty members of our English department who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth flow of this meeting. I would like to give a heartfelt appreciation to all our students and participants from various colleges who participated enthusiastically. May this conference inspire us to continue exploring the diverse voices and perspectives that shape our understanding of Global South as a site of intellectual, cultural, and political dimension. I thank you once again for being a part of today's session. Thank you, one and all.
Can I take leave then? Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I take leave?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much then. So get
Thank
back to you later. Thank you.